Welcome to the Women Trailblazers podcast from the UWSP Women's Center for Equity, Development, and Leadership. Here at UW Stevens Point, we believe that women thrive when they participate in leadership at all levels of decision-making.
This podcast is dedicated to centering women and showcasing the incredible ways we lead together. Each episode, we explore stories of resilience, innovation, and empowerment. Our second series is part of UWSP's Point Out Loud pilot, and we're thrilled to have you join us.
Today, we are blessed with the presence of Lark Lewis with National Women's Law Center. We are going to be talking about allyship, how she empowers women in her career, and how to avoid dimming your light. Well, thank you so much, Lark, for being here today. Lena and I are so excited to have you join us.
Thank you. The pleasure's all mine.
Starting off right away, how does your work with the National Women's Law Center uplift women?
Yeah, basically everything we do is with the goal of uplifting women. So we are a multi-issue nonprofit organization that works to expand and kind of progress gender justice. And we kind of sit at the intersection of policy, the legal community, and kind of culture and narrative change work. So kind of how people feel about things and how they talk about certain issues. And so through those kind of three avenues, we work on all types of things to make lives easier and better and more supportive for women and their families. So that is top of mind for us in everything that we do. Every bill we endorse and help get past, every amicus brief and piece of litigation we enter and pursue, every single tweet and TikTok we make. I'm on the comms team, so that's my avenue. Top of mind is how is this going to help women?
So what drew you to the work of centering women through the National Women's Law Center?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've always kind of been pretty advocacy minded. Even as a kid, I remember dragging my mom to phone banks and protesting for school board. In middle school, I've always been pretty nosy and active in that sense. And so I moved to DC right after I graduated college. I had the honor of working for an incredible female congresswoman for a few months. And then I worked on the political campaign side and fundraising. And that was really great because I got to really see the landscape of both the official elected side and then the campaign election side. And from there, I realized I really want to focus in on what we now call gender justice. I don't really know if that was a term I had in my world in 2018, but I loved working on a lot of different issues, but that intersection of how it all really is connected is so important. And I still think I don't think I really understood how that invisible string runs through women's lives until I started working with National Women's Law Center. So I was seeking out workplaces that were focused on gender justice and uplifting women, and it just happened that the timing was really great that there was an opening at the National Women's Law Center. And so I've been there for a little over 5 years now, which I never thought I would be at a job that long. I would normally like to move around a little bit more, but I haven't had a reason to leave. And it's just really great work. And like I kind of alluded to, it's so interesting and important to see how all of these things that we work on are really intersected, right? If you're not getting paid an equitable wage, you may not be able to advance in your career or support your family. If you're not getting access to, healthcare or healthy food that you need, that impacts your ability to go to work also and to care for your family. And if you don't have access to childcare, then that's going to affect your ability to go to the doctor or get the job that you may really want and be qualified for. And so kind of seeing all of those things intersect and interact, I think people are getting a little bit more attuned to understanding that, and that's been really great to see at the National Women's Law Center, and is what really initially drew me to the organization.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that. I know, so Lark, you and I, we crossed paths through Uplift.
Yes.
And so I noticed that you've been involved in Uplift, you're involved in the National Women's Law Center. So what is it like for you, and what's something that inspires you to have this common theme in your life to really support women?
Yeah, honestly, it's just other women around me. It's women like you two. It's women like Angie who founded Uplift, and seeing the energy and the power that women have. All throughout history, we see women like that have kind of taken the reins, even when we've been disenfranchised, and that's still happening today. It takes a lot to kind of do everything that women do in our everyday lives, and then still on top of that do that as your work or as your hobby or as something that just again takes up more time in your life. And so that is always something that inspires me and gives me hope. Every, I feel like, room I'm in, every meeting I get to be a part of, I'm still to this day learning stuff and inspired by women. And like the connections, we were talking just before we got started of how many connections we have just between us three in this world across time zones and states. And that is just, I think, powerful and shows the power of women. And that's just gives me goosebumps, but that it also gives me hope.
That's beautiful. So I just want to share with you the picture you've created in my mind. So this has been a mentoring moment for me. So we're how many minutes in and you're already mentoring me. I love it. I have new language. I have 4 new words, which is the invisible string of gender justice.
Yeah.
And just now, when you were describing how we're all connected, I saw us all holding that string at different places, right? Where it intersects with us and our lives. As a leader, how are you leading for that invisible string of gender justice to be healthier, to be more productive, more profound?
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to get to talk to a lot of university students and classes through my alma mater and through some connections I have at UWSP and even recent grads. And I always say kind of what you just said. Everyone has a role, right? Not everyone needs to be a lawyer, a politician, a doctor, a CEO. There's all of these roles. There's all these parts of the rope and the string that you can hold. And as someone who works in the communication space, I find that and take that to heart so much. Like, this is not a job I knew existed when I was in college, and I was a communications, journalism, political science, media studies major. But, it kind of takes a little bit more of a deeper thinking to understand of all the stuff you see, there's all those people behind that, right? There's an HR department, there's a finance and accounting department, there's a comms department, there's a fundraising department, all of these things that make all the work that we see publicly happen. And so that is kind of what I take as my charge, is I'm the person that is able to dissect the legalese and the kind of in the weeds political work and language and make that digestible for people to share out and have it be applicable to their lives. Because like anything, you can have a great invention, you can have a great bill on the House floor, but if people don't understand what it means or how it's going to affect them, it doesn't really do a good service, right? That will not be helpful to people. So I see that as my charge, and my way that I'm helping hold up this invisible string is through communications work. And I think a lot of times, especially women, we belittle the work that we do, I'm just on comms, I'm just on the fundraising team, but that's important stuff. None of this work would happen without all of those people working together.
Okay. You heard it here. Lark Lewis says to all of you listeners, don't belittle your work. Stop it.
Don't do it. No, I had someone tell me once, years ago, I was in a room with a lot of really important and successful people, and we were kind of talking and mingling, and I remember them asking me, what do I do? And I said, I worked, I don't know, wherever I was at the time. And they asked what my role was, and I said, I just do social media. And a woman pulled me aside after and was like, don't ever say just. Your job is a job. It's a real job. You're doing it. Even if it's not, don't say I just take care of my kids. I just do this. I'm just a student. That's what you're doing, and that's your life, and that has power and value. And so that is like seared in my brain. I don't think I'll ever say that ever again.
Beautiful.
Wow, that is beautiful. When you think about women and our role in society as a whole, what gives you the most hope?
I mean, just that women have got it, right? Like, I feel like anytime I've needed anything professionally, personally, I've gone to a woman, it's be it my mom, my aunt, a former boss, a current boss. Like, I feel safe and protected and supported by other women. And I think women have been doing all of these things and doing so much and multitasking and carrying loads both visible and invisible since the dawn of time. And I'm glad that there's a little bit more appreciation and light shed on how much women do that is unseen and underappreciated. But I just know that women will pull through. We always do. And we uniquely understand what we're all going through. And that just always gives me hope. You know, I mean, even little anecdote stories of people knowing to reach out to a woman, you know, when you're lost somewhere, you know, where kids instinctively go to a woman for many reasons we could get into, but because I think women, the role that women play are the saviors and are really the true leaders in our society.
All right. You got me. I'm in. True leaders.
So I want to go back to the belittling your work. Why do you think it is that women tend to belittle ourselves? Why do you think that women tend to belittle themselves like that? Why do you think it's more of like a woman thing than a man thing?
It's such an interesting concept. I think I'm like very solidly millennial. So I have seen kind of I was coming into the full-time career force like during the big like girl boss lean in movement. And so to me, it was not really instinctual to belittle myself. I was very lucky to have been brought up in a time and in a community that always encouraged me to shout from the rooftops all the cool things I'm doing. But I will say, even with all that, even best case scenario and being told to lean in, to do it, to be a girl boss and all of the things that entails, it's still, I think women in society, we have this kind of, I don't know how to call it, like you're unconscious almost wanting to make yourself smaller. Like it doesn't seem cool or successful or even attractive to some people to be successful and to be a loud and proud advocate for yourself, even though we do it for all of our friends, right? How many times have we been with our friends or colleagues and shout out each other's accomplishments, but when it comes to us, we don't have anything to say. And I think it's still just like good old patriarchy that we have not kind of tamped down yet, that women can be proud about their accomplishments and their work, and men certainly are. And so I do think that it's getting a little better of how proud women are and less afraid to be outspoken about all that they do. But I think it's still just that classic patriarchy in the back of our heads of saying like, well, I don't want to boast, you know, I want to give credit to the team. Like women do that a lot. It was a team effort. It took all of us. I couldn't have done it without you, which is true. But you can also say I led the charge, you know, or I was the one who brought us all together and this was great. I think we never want to come off as bossy or owning things. But the reality is we are doing those things. And so there's a way you can do it in a really nice and supportive way while still showing all that you do. And the reality is that men are doing that all the time. So we might as well match their energy in that sense.
Yeah. You know, I'm feeling this huge play on words right now. You talked about your work being about making content digestible, making concepts and movements and initiatives digestible. And yet you just told a story about digesting patriarchy, that patriarchy is in you. So you had this moment that you described for us earlier where this woman called you out, said, don't use just. So if you were going to turn that into some practical advice for every woman listening to our podcast, how does a woman shift the patriarchy she's digested and that's actually in her?
Wow. Okay. Big charge. I'm also going to call upon, I learned so much from other women and they give me hope, but someone else told me this and I don't remember if I read it somewhere or listened to it on another podcast, but talk about yourself the way you talk about your best friend. You know, like I have my best friend and I'm on her Instagram comments, you know, slay, you're doing it. I'm hyping her up for an interview. Like, you've got this. I'm Venmoing her for coffee after a tough week, you know. Treat yourself like that and kind of just start there. And I think you'll get a little bit more in the habit of it. I think it is uncomfortable. There's still times, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm fully confident and proud about everything I do all the time. There still are rooms, like I said, where I'm not going to step up and say I did all of this. You know, I held this down. even when maybe I should. But I think it's all kind of like strengthening a muscle, right? You're not going to be able to do 100 push-ups in one sitting, but you can try one push-up a day and try to uplift yourself and give yourself those build-ups the same way you would your like best friend or your like favorite mentor or someone you really look up to. And I think that is a good way to start.
That's great. So Lark, I'm curious, how you've been in this field for a really long time. How do you handle setbacks or resistance in your advocacy efforts?
Yeah, it's tough. It ebbs and flows, as you can imagine in the kind of political advocacy space. We have high highs and we have low lows. I think, again, what keeps me afloat is a lot of this stuff is cyclical. A lot of the fights we're fighting in my particular position, we fought before and will presumably have to fight again in the future. And so I know that people have weathered this storm before and under worse conditions, right? So I think looking back on history and seeing kind of how those people supported themselves and how they were able to push the movement forward always gives me hope and kind of gives me a little bit more strength. I think on that same note, pushing forward for progress and not perfection is a big thing that we tell ourselves a lot at the center of. You may not get, this one specific bill, but like maybe you were able to convince a few more senators that this is a good thing. And so maybe next Congress, it can get further, right? Or, maybe a bill didn't pass, but you told 40,000 people on Instagram how important this is, and so they're going to go tell their elected representatives or something like that. Or you still got, that tens of thousands of people outside the Supreme Court to call attention to a certain issue. So those things, I think, always help keep us grounded. We kind of, as a context, we at the National Women's Law Center had been working on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act for over 10 years, and it just got signed into law this past year. And so we had people at the center who had been in those very first meetings, the first Congress it was introduced. And I mean, talk about a progress push over 10 years, but we made it there, right? It's something that we had to really just come back up every year and say, we are asking you once again to pass the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, that pregnant workers deserve specific accommodations. And sometimes it's timing, sometimes the stars align, but a lot of times it's just hard work over and over and over again. And then I think the last thing that I think is really important is understanding you can't do it all. And there's certain things that are out of your control. You can try your best, but to not let the defeats kind of crush you. And then to really enjoy the wins. The highs don't always come as often as the lows in any sector, in any part of life. So to revel in those, to, not let the logistics and the realities kind of set in when there's a big celebratory moment or a big update, to own that, to live in that, and to just take time for yourself and with stuff that you like to do that's outside of the work, right? Go ahead and go for a walk and turn your phone off. The world will still exist, spend time with your kids and your animals and your family and your friends, read a good book. It's so important, even if you can just have, 30 minutes to do that, you have to recharge yourself to keep going.
Thank you for that. I know I have a hard time with my setbacks. It's being a student, being a UWSP staff, I'm sure, it's a common theme, I think, that today as women we have. So thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Well, yeah.
How can we join your work in centering women with the National Women's Law Center?
Well, again, as someone on the content team, follow us on social media. That will be my first plug. We are everywhere. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, National Women's Law Center. We also have a 501c4 sister organization called the National Women's Law Center Action Fund. So if you're on social media, follow us there. That is the best way to kind of see everything that we're up to and kind of what we're activating on. I would also say get involved in your local communities. If there is an issue you're passionate about, whether it's free or discounted menstruation products in schools or, healthy snacks for kids in schools, it doesn't have to be something overtly political or this big, broad issue, like closing the wage gap. That's going to take a little bit of work, right? There's ways you can activate and plug in and kind of work into your everyday life. Maybe if you have the means while you're buying groceries, that you can stock up and grab some more oranges, you know, and check in with the people in your community doing those types of work, because like we've talked about, women are doing it everywhere. And so I think plugging into your community, talking with your friends and seeing what kind of things they are interested in or activated in. There's like so many Facebook groups for communities. There's like literal bulletin boards. And so I think that is a great way that doesn't kind of take over your whole life, but you can still make a really big difference. And I honestly believe a lot of what happens in your local community is more impactful to you most times than what's happening at the big federal level. You know, think about the people that are paving your roads and, you know, deciding where a new school is going to be built or who's going to be the crossing guard at your kid's school. All those things are decided at the local level. So that is always my big push for people, is to get involved locally, because there's plenty of opportunities.
We're talking about women in general, and I'm just curious, Lark, how do you want to be centered as a woman?
Oh, wow. I think a big thing for me is just always respect. I think a lot of women have a lot of incredible things to say and aren't taken seriously, or are seen as kind of the alarm bells. You know, women historically have been called hysterical and hyperbolic, when we're almost always right? Everything we warn about years in advance comes true. And we never get to really say, I told you so. So I think respect is always a big thing for me. Especially, you know, I live in Washington, D.C. now. I mostly interact with people that I agree with politically and morally, but there's so many times that I don't. We are a nonpartisan organization. And so I think if you don't have respect, you really don't have anything. You can have a difference of opinion, but if you don't respect me, then, you know, we're just never going to meet, right? We're like already on like different blocks, different floors of a building, if you truly don't respect or see me as like a confident, smart person that can do things. And so I think that is kind of the biggest thing, and that I that's the way I hope to be centered. When I walk into a room, when I'm in this work, I hope that people see me as capable and respect me.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So that's another word of wisdom that we've gotten here from Lark. This is what we can bring to every human in our lives, but certainly every woman, right? Every woman in our lives, we can bring this level of respect. We can start from the get-go seeing her as capable and respecting her with our words and with our energy, with the way we elevate her, the way we repeat what she says and attribute that to her. I just love that. Thank you for helping me see that.
Of course.
I love that question. That was beautiful, Lark.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. What is one thing you'd like to ask everyone listening to this podcast to do to further unleash women?
I would like everyone listening to kind of just check your biases, I guess it is. You know, we all live in our own bubbles of whatever it is, of people your same age, people in your geographical area, people who you agree with politically, whatever it is. And to kind of unleash from that sometimes, right? There's comfort in that and there's support in that. And we all need those places that we feel safe and know we can be our true selves and say what we truly feel. But I think I invite everyone, you know, whatever it is that you're different. Maybe you're a woman entering a room of all men. Maybe you're a man entering a room with all women. Maybe you're someone who doesn't have any, you know, gender expansive or non-binary or trans friends. Finding ways to kind of educate yourself and inch out of maybe what you're really comfortable in, I think is a really important thing, and something I've purposely been trying to do in the past couple years. I'll give a personal example. I'm someone who, I'm biracial, I'm a woman, I'm like so on it when it comes to racial and gender justice. But I was finding myself coming up short in terms of disability justice and the allyship I can offer to that community. And so I've been really making it a purposeful effort to seek out those opportunities at work of ways I can plug into those communities and advocate for them. We as an organization do that work a lot, but I was not the person, you know, promoting that stuff, and just learning a lot about their history and the struggles that community has faced and still faced. And it doesn't take a lot, right? You know, it's simply maybe reading an article, listening to a podcast on your walk, or going the extra mile and introducing yourself to a specific group of people. I think that can go a long way and kind of helps settle everything that you're going through and everything that's kind of going on in your immediate world and outside of it, and helps position it in a way of, I think, solidarity and also comfort of, we're not alone. Everything we're going through, someone else is also going through something maybe better, maybe worse, maybe similar. And I do think there is some comfort in that.
You talk a lot about allyship and equality in just women alone. How can someone be a better ally to women?
That's a great question. I think, one, we need allies, right? We need men, we need everyone on the entire gender spectrum to all support each other. And I think a great way to do that is live your truth in doing that and practice what you preach. If you're a man who maybe only has one woman on your team, are you making sure that she's feeling comfortable and supported, and also uplifting her ideas, like you said, Lena, like repeating what she's saying, not just taking credit for it? Are there ways, if you're a spouse, that you can support the women in your life of all of the load that they carry every single day for your family, for your household, for the community? I think just centering that person a little bit more, and maybe it's as simple as making it like an affirmation, right? You check your phone every day and just see, how are the women in my life doing today? Is there some way I can support? And I think being explicit in that too, right? I think it's okay to say, I'm not an expert by any means, but let me know ways I can help support you. Because a lot of times women, we do not want to ask for help. We don't want to seem weak. We want to show that we've got it all. And so sometimes just having an ally reach out and say that as plain as day can be really helpful. And you don't have to have all the answers. The people in your community will know what they need and how you can be helpful. But I think that's a really good starting point.
So I guess I'm looking at this in more of a professional and personal aspect. How do you personally or professionally engage with and support women from diverse backgrounds within your work?
Yeah. Personally, I'm really lucky to live in a big city that offers me a lot of diversity just on its face in every sense of the word. I also personally, I teach bar 3 classes on the side as well. And that is a space that I've really come to cherish in my diversity of women and kind of who's in my circle and who are my people. It is a beautiful, like, women-centric boutique fitness place, but everyone there is coming from a different thing, right? I have clients and friends that are in their 60s and 70s. I have clients who are students and interns here for the summer. I have clients who have just had a baby or who are about to have their 4th baby, and I love that Bar 3-1 can be that place for everyone, but that I get to interact with these people too. They come to my classes, I meet them, I then follow them on Instagram, and then they invite me to their barbecues and stuff like that. And I think that is just a really fun thing. And there's places kind of built into our lives that we may not even think of as being diverse. A big thing my friends and I have been working on the past couple of years is intergenerational friendships. It's very easy to kind of just sit with people your own age, but reaching out to people older or younger than you and making space for that friendship. It can be awkward and hard to reach out to someone and say, hey, would you like to grab a coffee, or can I come meet you with our kids at the park or something like that. But oftentimes people are always looking for new friends and want to support. I've had a really good experience every time I've done that and kind of gone out on a limb. But I think it also doesn't have to be in person too, right? In this digital age, I know there's so many people I follow and support online, but I've never met them in real life, And so there's that too of kind of just broadening your circle that I think makes us all better, and I just learned so much.
Well, I love that. I just want to say you're sitting on the intergenerational limb that Serena and I created. Yes. As we have an intergenerational friendship, and I think we're doing really good.
Yeah.
We're figuring it out. It's so I will just say that as someone who's on the older side, that I find inside myself like this obligation almost to dominate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mean it to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, well, I'm supposed to know better.
Yeah.
Or I'm supposed
I
to
feel
do
the same
better.
when I interact, with younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha folks. And it's like, you don't have to be the boss. You don't have to be the older sister or the aunt or the like mother figure. You can interact and be friends and I think I found when I am interacting with people older than me, I'm not expecting that, right? If I come to you and say, I want advice as someone who's been through this before, someone who's been my age, what is your advice? Yes. But otherwise, I'm just wanting a friend too. I'm wanting companionship and all that they have to offer. So, but I definitely feel you. There's so many times I find myself having to be like a little more buttoned up or like professional and almost, I don't know. I feel like when I do it, it comes off like scoldy or something. So
my term is school marmy.
Yes, yeah.
So I will say that my own shift in behavior with Serena is intentionally following Serena. That I just slow my act down.
Yeah.
And I wait and I follow. One other thing that you said that really caught me. So when you teach at Bar 3, you are intentionally putting yourself in the way of diversity. So you're signing up for something that's going to put you in the way of there being an opportunity for more diverse interactions.
Yeah, and I would say I don't think I knew that instinctually when I did say I signed up as a client first when I moved here and got a paycheck, a real job, to be able to afford that. And I knew I was looking for connection outside of work. I had moved to a city where I didn't know anyone. My roommates I had when I first moved here went back to school. I really the few people I'd met at like receptions over the summer were the people I knew as my friends. And so I was starting brand new over and I was excited about that, but it is really isolating. And so I was really excited to find, they call them kind of third spaces. And as a society, we're lacking in third spaces of a place that's not work, that's not your home, but a place that you have community. And people used to traditionally find them in churches and religious communities, but those are also, the numbers are kind of fading for the most part. And so a lot of people have been turning to hobbies, whether it's your book club or the gym you go to or, whatever the restaurant you order out on every Friday and you see people there. I think we all yearn in a animalistic way for that connection of finding new people and finding kind of our pack of people. And so I don't think I knew exactly how great and rich and diverse it would be when I did that. I think it was close to my apartment, but I had seen what they were signaling out, right? Which was that I had seen their Instagram of all these different types of people, all types of bodies celebrated, every age, whatever your body has gone through. One of the big mantras there is take what feels good, ditch what doesn't. And that is something that I certainly carry into my life too. But having that space was really great. And now being able to create that space for others as an instructor is really great. And I literally, it sounds cliche, but every time I step into that studio, I hope that's what I'm bringing to people, that thing that I didn't know that I needed, but that I love so much and have been a part of for over 5 years. I want everyone else to feel that same way.
I think powerful women need outlets, and it's so great that you shared your own. And I feel like I just have been, getting into mine personally as well.
Yeah.
So it's been really great. To summarize, I guess for a last question, what advice do you have for a woman interested in politics, or what do you wish you would have told your younger self?
I think something I wish I would have told myself, and I've said it already today, and it's something that generations younger than me have taught me, is again, you can't do it all. You can't fix it all. You are here in a specific time and place to do a specific time and thing. Like I told you guys, I have always been active and pretty stubborn and hard-headed. You can talk to my parents or pretty much any adult that was around me when I was growing up, which I think ultimately that drive and ambition has served me well. But I have to kind of pull back my eldest daughter, you can fix it. You're superwoman complex that it's all on you. If this one thing doesn't get done, women will never have rights again, you know, or like you can't, that's not sustainable. And some of the most decorated and kind of honorable activists and organizers in political history took that to heart. And even like you said, Serena, finding those outlets, part of, I would say, the downside of coming of age and the kind of girl boss momentum was that wasn't really celebrated, right? That you were go, go, go all the time. You can do it all. And that is just not sustainable for a long time. And so it took me a while. My first job after my internship, I was extremely stressed out. I like developed an eye twitch. It was not great. And I knew, you know, that was my body telling me, you got to do something else. And so I knew going into the nonprofit sector, which is I'm still politically tied to, but not so much the constant being on all the time that political campaigns require. I knew that. I tried it. That's just not something that I can do. There's tons of people that can do it. I have great friends that like move every 9 months and hop on campaigns, and that is so admirable. But I think finding your space in your lane, even if it takes a long time, and knowing it's not all on you. You've got a whole movement, you've got a team. The world will still keep going, and even if it doesn't, it's not your fault. So that's something I still have to tell myself quite often.
Gosh, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Lark. I've learned so much about not belittling yourself, you know, finding your outlet, and how to really be an allyship for those who, for all women. So thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for joining us on the Women Trailblazers podcast. We hope these conversations inspire you to take action in your own life and community.
Remember, as Gloria Steinem said, the story of women's struggle for equality belongs to no single feminist nor any one organization, but to the collective efforts of all who care about human rights.
Stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll continue to uplift the voices and stories of women trailblazers.
Until then, keep leading, keep thriving, and keep making a difference.